Thank you again to Congressman Moran, and good morning. My name is Courtney, and I am the president and CEO of Global Ties KC, and it is a great honor to introduce you to my Congresswoman, Sharice Davids, who is serving her 4th term on behalf of Kansas's 3rd District. She is one of the most humble, caring, and in it for the right reasons politicians in all of Washington, D.C., who has been meeting when welcoming the U.S. Department of State and congressionally supported exchange participants to Kansas since before she started this role, and consistently shows up to engagements with international visitors with her full heart and her full attention. Representing a leading agricultural exporting state, Congresswoman Davids understands firsthand the importance of America's role in the world to secure local jobs and drive economic growth both in the heartland and across the country. As a member of the powerful House Agricultural Committee, she has worked tirelessly to support America's farmers and sustain funding for key international food assistance programs that are fueling Americans' growing crops. Sharice Davids brings to Congress a uniquely multifaceted background as an attorney, former mixed martial artist, economic development professional, and tribal nations advocate, experiences that continue to shape her pragmatic and community-focused approach to public service. Congresswoman, thank you for your leadership, support, and your powerful voice. Everyone, please join me in welcoming to the stage Congresswoman Sharice Davids.
Good morning. Oh, there we go. Okay. And good coffee. I just had some coffee, so I'm appreciated that. Man, you guys got up here early today, which I realize there's probably a lot of people who are like, what are you talking about? This is early. Get up at 4 a.m. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the introduction. It is still awkward to stand there while someone does an introduction. I did do mixed martial arts, which just means I've gotten beat up a lot. And before I got to Congress, no, just kidding. But it's so awesome to be in a room with a bunch of folks who understand something that I know I hear all the time when I'm back home in Kansas, and that's what happens around the world actually does hit very close to home every single day. And actually, before I really get into my remarks, I want to recognize the USGLC's Kansas Advisory Committee, co-chaired by former Secretary and Congressman and my current mentor, whether he knows it or not, Dan Glickman. And then former Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins. This group, in my opinion, represents the very best of the state of Kansas, and I'm so proud to get the chance to represent Kansas in Congress. And last year in KC, we were able to host USGLC in the Kansas 3rd. And we sat down with folks from across a broad spectrum, farmers, business leaders, local stakeholders, to talk about tariffs and trade and uncertainty in the global markets. So I'm glad you're all sitting down in case you're surprised about that. But the thing that really struck me was that no one in the room was talking about foreign policy as some sort of academic exercise or thought experiment. People were talking about whether they could sell their products. People were talking about whether they could plan for next year, which Congress doesn't do the best job of. So thank you all for bringing that perspective. Whether people could count on markets that folks have spent years building up and building relationships with folks. And when trade policies change overnight, when export markets become less reliable, when programs that connect American agriculture products to buyers around the world, when those markets are disrupted, Kansas farmers feel it immediately, and the impact can be devastating sometimes. And it's one of the reasons that I recognize that American leadership requires more than a strong military. And we heard about this. Actually, I meant to say, I enjoyed Rep. Moran's comments, including the relationship evaluation portion. I'm glad his daughter has a good dad. But as somebody who I am absolutely all for us having a strong military. My mom served in the Army for 20 years. And she was a drill sergeant for part of that time. So you guys can see my push-ups later. And I can say without a doubt, I have so much confidence in our military. I have so much confidence in the folks who signed up to serve this country. But it's not our only tool, and it cannot be the only tool that we're willing to use. If that is the case, we make the job of everyone else so much harder and so much more expensive. Diplomacy matters, development matters, economic partnerships matter. And it's not just because these are nice ideas, but because they help prevent problems well in advance of any crises that might come up. And I am a big fan of doing a lot of outreach when I'm at home with people, whether we agree or disagree on, well, of course, no one agrees on every single issue. But I'm a big fan of developing those relationships before you run into real problems. You don't want the first time you're interacting with someone to be when you're in the middle of a crisis or a stressful situation. And yeah. And I actually do think that when you, especially when you look at the ag sector, when you look at rural America, in the introduction, it was mentioned that I did work with tribes in Indian country. And across the board, you see this, that where there are strong relationships that already exist prior to a crisis, you handle it so much better. And sometimes you avoid those things. Creating stable trading partners is a real strength that we have. Helping to build relationships that advance American interests is something that I know a bunch of folks in this room specifically work on, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. When we're building those relationships, again, like I didn't know I was going to get to hear Rep. Moran speaking, but I took a number of things away from his talk, including I'm going to have to steal the sound policy, not sound bites. I'll tell him when we're on the floor. But, when you think about how building those relationships, how investing in diplomacy and development helps us compete against countries like China who are absolutely investing in their influence around the world. We all recognize that, and we recognize the importance of the role that we have. Sometimes folks talk about soft power in a way that makes it sound like it's this optional thing, or sometimes an afterthought. And I would say that I have seen that a bit more in this last year and a half than I would like to have seen. I view soft power as necessary, and it is such a huge strength of our country. And that's something that you can talk to people on both sides of the aisle, across the political spectrum, and that I think you would be hard pressed to find anyone who does not believe that when the United States exits or isn't exercising our soft power, someone else is going to step in and try to do that. And if we stop investing in partnerships, our competitors are absolutely going to do that. They're going to be the ones that step in. And the people who pay the price are not the policymakers, although sometimes maybe we should be, but it's not the policymakers in Washington generally who pay the price. It's the businesses, it's the employees, it's the stakeholders, it's the farmers, it's the ranchers, and it's folks in places like Kansas. And I got to meet some folks from Iowa. It's folks in Iowa and every single community that's represented in here today. You guys are the ones who have to live and breathe the decisions that we're making on a daily basis in Washington. And not only do you all deserve accountability because of the work that you do, but the taxpayers deserve accountability across the country. And, when we think about how we're going to move forward, if a program is not effective, if a program needs to be adjusted, let's figure out how to do that. We got to dig deep and actually make some hard decisions. But I'm definitely not a fan of us throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. I'm not a fan of it anyway. So, I want us to be able to engage in these hard conversations. And luckily, I get to serve on the House Agriculture Committee, and I feel like we do that in our committee. I get to serve on two of the bipartisan. I don't know if you guys. It might be hard to believe, but there's a couple of bipartisan committees in the Congress. And Ag and Transportation and Infrastructure are those two committees. Like making sure that we are improving things and not walking away from things. In a state like Kansas, this is absolutely what we have to constantly be doing. Because in Kansas, we grow stuff, we build stuff, we sell things all around the world. Stuff is a technical term, by the way. It's that's inclusive of specialty and row crops. And I just, I'm always going to be a strong believer that when America is viewed as a strong, reliable partner, states like Kansas benefit and your states benefit. The entire country sees the benefit of that. It's why I continue to believe that we need to be making use of every single tool that we have. That includes our military, that includes our development partners, that includes our relationships. And, I don't know of any leadership books or theories, or even my mom, who in her own way was like such an amazing leader that I got to watch growing up. Your relationships are so important. And I just, at the end of the day, this is both about foreign policy and not about foreign policy. This is about how we want to interact with the world and be seen on the world stage. And this is about whether or not American workers are going to have opportunities, whether our businesses are going to have opportunities, and whether our future generations are going to have opportunities. And that's like everything from addressing problems as they come up to avoiding problems before they even arise. And I feel like you guys are like doing some really awesome work, getting the chance to sit down and interact with folks in the Kansas 3rd. And even for the little bit that I got to interact with people this morning, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your advocacy, your education of people on the Hill. I know you guys have some packets. I saw the Kansas stats. Please just know that what you're doing is very important. And sometimes things take a long time at the federal level. I know I'm shocking you guys this morning with all of these tidbits, but the work that you're doing has such a positive impact on our ability as lawmakers to be able to craft and craft policy and address issues. And I guess in the words of my dear friend, Rep. Moran, let's continue to work on sound policy and not just sound bites. So thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you for the work that you all are doing. Have a good day.